Now that we have seen the wild end of Record of Ragnarok Season 3, we know exactly what will be occurring in the 4th season, and it may come earlier than you would think. So like always, we can assume the next 3 fights will be the focus. However, there is a little bit of a change as we saw in the final episodes. Odin's full main villain reveals will without a doubt continue. Dedicated flashbacks will be featured throughout round 10, 11, then of course round 12, and further insane moments. I'm sure any of you watching who are anime only fans are dying to know what happens next. So here is the breakdown of everything that will be included in Season 4, with everyone making sure they're subscribed here on Mysterious Weeb for all the Record of Ragnarok content you need. Let's get into it. So the anime, similar to previous seasons, may change the order of some events. For example, I see it beginning with the continued confrontation between Odin, Buddha and Beelzebub, while in the manga this actually continues at a later point after getting a few chapters dedicated to the round 10 fight. They may just include this at the start, then fully get into the round 10 reveals, where Anubis is shown again, getting done dirty by Susnur, Okita being chosen as humanity's fighter, all of those scenes being fully adapted now that we're done with the Odin stuff for a little bit. But the way this situation continues after that moment is a silhouette reveal of some of the primordial gods, revealing that they are the very origin of the universe and wielded such strength where they could not handle it, leading into a self-destruction. This is the lore about them that most current day gods are only aware of. But when it comes to Odin, Beelzebub and Buddha, we have the supreme god of the Norse pantheon going crazy, while Beelzebub brings up a certain myth that he uncovered during his research about Satan, relating to the Book of Golnir, something that described how to revive the primordial gods, featuring aspects about the World Tree, Water of Life, and Odin himself, questioning the Norse god on the connection and potentially his goals, where Odin begins laughing like a maniac, revealing that he's the Lord of Madness, the Lord of Rage, and prepares to take out both of them with all of his power. But that's where he stopped. Lightning strikes, Thor has arrived and instantly stuns Odin, with everyone not continuing to fight. This is where he highlights his respect for the brave warriors who participated in the Ragnarok tournament, and if anyone disrespects their might by interrupting the tournament, no matter who they are, I will not forgive it. Fully concluding the battle as Buddha concedes, and he even threatens Odin in this scene here. Goated stuff. However, Beelzebub does not want to stop and prepares to attack Odin regardless of the situation. This is where we also have the arrival of Adamas and Kintoki to the battlefield. Adamas is the one who successfully calms down Beelzebub, while Odin and Kintoki have a very interesting standoff, where eventually Odin and Thor take their leave and the insanity concludes. This is where Kintoki reveals what's been going on in regards to his Siegfried adventures, where he found out that yes, he's around Tartarus. However, according to the demon guards, there's no direct entrance for someone like him, meaning they can't exactly get access to Siegfried. Beelzebub has an interaction where he's kinda baiting in Buddha, due to of course him being the one that put Hajun inside of Zero and was the originator of that whole situation, where it looks like Buddha is about to rage out and attack him. However, bro is too goated for something like that. He is truly enlightened and low-key accepts what Beelzebub has done, which results in the equivalent of Satan in the current day, to view Buddha as the most bothersome fellow, similar to how he described Hades, and even claims that Buddha may be the one to actually kill Beelzebub, or the only one capable of doing so, Very interesting stuff. Fully concluding this segment featuring Odin until a later point in the story, so make sure you watch the entire video. Therefore, this brings us to the canon walkout of the round 10 fighters, the start of the next battle in Ragnarok. With this as the arena, and Susnur being introduced as the greatest swordsman in all of Valhalla, and some lore about his legendary divine weapon that will be important for later on. But right at the start, he shows his respect for this period of time when it comes to swordsmen, also towards Okita himself, who Susnur has wanted to clash with for a long time. Therefore, the fighting begins with Okita's charge that is dodged and then blocked by Susnur's covered weapon, who demonstrates enough power to send the human flying away, resulting in the Manslayer to get more excited and highlight some impressive movement for the first major reveal about him. A unique trait about Okita when it comes to his design is his eyes, with it being claimed here with red eyes that appear when Okita Tsuji reaches the peak of excitement. He becomes the demon child, another thing that will be very important for later on. And those eyes burning bright red are proof of his life force burning up quickly. By having his heart pump 3 times more blood than normal, all the muscle cells in his entire body are awakened. Therefore, this is how Okita amps himself throughout his fight against Susnur here, and is considered his main ability that continues to be expanded on as the fight continues, and is what allowed him to land this first main attack that destroyed Susnur's sword covering and revealed one of the strongest divine weapons in the entire series. One that is different to all the others for one key reason. Susnur got the best human and god blacksmiths to work together and enhance the already legendary sword, highlighting that Susnur is not like any of the other gods, who begins to show his power by taking a simple stance. Something that in an instant left every swordsman watching stunned. This includes Sasaki, the winner of round 3 against Poseidon, who claims that those aiming for the pinnacle of swordsmen should be able to see it. That stance is everything. This is how they see Susnur now. Crazy stuff. Therefore, the fight continues with various clashes between the two. Okita goes for a counter and Susnur does the same, resulting in, I guess, an endless loop of attacks. Or at a base level, you could say these two are even. However, the most important thing for both of them is that they're having fun. However, Okita begins to get more serious as his eyes glow more red. He is continuing to amp himself with the blood flow, and successfully pressures the god more with his next attacks, highlighting an increase in speed and danger when facing this demon, who lands a direct slash on Susnur, which puts the god on his knees. Humanity has now taken the lead in this fight, but the god rises and begins to get more serious himself, alongside this being the transition into his flashback, where we learn how Susnur came to respect humanity, and once again how he's different to every other god. To such a degree, he was banished from the Japanese realm of the gods, and spent his days watching humanity evolve swordsmanship, training himself in every style. Something that got him interested in fighting Okita originally, as his ultimate goal and sole reason for fighting in Ragnarok. There is other aspects, but this is the important things to consider for this fight. Now, coming back to the clash, we see what a more serious Susnur is capable of, where Okita can no longer find an opening against the sword god, while Susnur swings his almighty sword at range this time. Something you would not expect from a mere swordsman, with this being a reminder that Ragnarok is not fair. They are fighting gods who wield power far beyond humanity. All Okita could do in that situation is survive and avoid the direct impact of this insane wind blade, and he still faced some decent damage. You could say the fight is back on an even playing field now. Therefore, we get a quick reminder that this is in fact a death match. They are having fun, but one of them will die, with the sword boy amping himself even more providing a gateway for us to learn why he is called a demon, and the one out of all swordsmen in human history to get Susanor's attention and lifelong desire to fight. But first, the fight continues with another charge and Giga Slash that ends with Akita avoiding the fatal blow and clashing swords in an instant, where we learn that the only way to prevent Susanoo from pretty much spamming that attack is to stay super close range and don't let up with your own attacks, perfect for Akita's fighting style and his further increase in speed now that he doesn't have a disease nerfing him like when he was alive, beginning to overwhelm Susanoo somewhat to a point that he pierces the god once again. However, this time the fight continues with no delay. The sword god has caught Okita slacking now. He is open for a direct Giga Slash that, if landed, could result in the demon's end and humanity being a step closer to destruction. So what does Okita do? A further amp and showcase of speed to clash at ultra close quarters again that keeps the fight going, with Susanoo now being at an advantage. The next slash is dodged by Akita, who leaped over it, and he counters by throwing the blade that lands on Susanoo's foot and once again is reclaimed in an instant. Both warriors are going for the finishing slash in this next moment. Which fighter will be able to land it first? In the end, it was Susanoo who successfully dropped the sword demon, doing major damage. However, that was not the end of the fight. Okita still has more to show, claiming until he gives absolutely everything, he refuses to meet death, transitioning us to his very important flashback, where we learn the truth about his inner demon and where his strength actually comes from. The original lore about Okita is that he died young due to an unknown illness, but the truth was this. The demon child was by nature a creature that was born and resided within Okita Tsuji. It was simultaneously the strongest and most wicked fighting instinct, meaning this inner demon is what resulted in Okita having this insane power, but also resulted in his death at a young age while crying, wanting to swing his sword more. But in Ragnarok, his body is in perfect condition as previously established in the series, meaning this demon is why Okita stands a chance now. For example, upon rising, his eyes begin to turn blue and he talks to this inner demon, wanting to unleash all of their power, even if Okita dies once again from the effects. The complete fusion and max output of his inner demon is here, which forces the sword god to cry and thanks Okita. At this moment, this fight is what Susanoo has been waiting for his entire life, bringing us to the climax of round 10, now that we see full power, demon fused Okita Tsuji, alongside one other thing. We finally get his Valkyrie revealed, who was talking to Okita and saying, "Let's draw out everything that you have," and Brynhilda explaining its ability. The past that Okita Tsuji has accumulated with his sword, and what he would have achieved had he not succumbed to his illness, his future as a swordsman, the entirety of Okita Tsuji's ability with the sword is being forcibly drawn out and collected as one. Very clearly an overpowered ability that means the past, present and future all is condensed into the current Okita Tsuji. The ultimate form or variation of him is fighting right now, but do not forget, as Brynhilda confirms the prior established demon stuff. Win or lose, for those two, this is their final clash as a swordsman. Okita Tsuji has completely become one with his demon child. He's carrying the entirety of that power, which is strong enough to burn up his entire body. Even if he makes it through this, he'll never be able to bear that same power again. His physical body should have long since worn past that, meaning the only way he's staying in this fight right now is due to the Valkyrie amps and of course the context of the Record of Ragnarok human fighters being in perfect physical health compared to when they were alive. Thus, coming back to the fight, Okita's speed is on a next level now, being able to overwhelm Susnor once again with his insane speed and various combos with the sword that has the god sweating and struggling to even block. The demon child is literally spamming all of his techniques in an endless barrage of attacks, surpassing anyone's imagination for a mere human. He is exceeding human logic with this crazy attack, and then this happens. The almighty strike after many others that lands directly on Susanor's sword with insane power. The god tries his best to push Okita away, but cannot do anything against this amped up version. We see Susanor's sword beginning to crack, and then it happens. Okita pierces right through the divine weapon, destroying it, and through the god Susnor as well, all with a single strike. Absolutely wild considering the previously established stuff about this divine weapon, enhanced from its already legendary status by the best human and god blacksmiths working together, leaving all the gods watching, including the Japanese ones that banished Susanoo, stunned with what just occurred. This is a next level showing from humanity's fighter. However, unlike the previous times, the god has not fallen to his knees. He stands there with a hole in his body and his divine weapon destroyed, and does this. Raises his hands in the sky, saying, "This is swordsmanship. Thanks to you, I have finally reached it," taking his sword stance with no weapon and swinging with an invisible sword that, yes, does damage to Okita and leaves everyone stunned once again. His inner bones are destroyed. He has reached the peak of swordsmanship. The unarmed sword is here. That once again transitions us into a flashback where a human swordmaster had reached this peak right at the point of death, or it can be interpreted as once a human reaches this level, their body can no longer handle it, resulting in death. The peak of the sword, in which there is no need to use a sword to cut. This is what Susnoo has now achieved, and is beyond any human due to the innate aspect of being a god. However, the effects of using this overpowered attack are still impacting Susanoo, with his body beginning to crack. But the most important thing is, of course, Okita and Susanoo both having fun with this fight. This is exactly what both have been waiting for their entire lives. Thus, Susanoo unleashes another invisible sword slash that cannot be avoided. Thus, he hits Okita directly in the middle of the body. He coughs up blood and he is about to fall unconscious to his death and face defeat. However, he still has enough energy for one more attack. He forces himself in for the final blow that the swordsman has, getting right in front of Susanoo, who is ready and about to unleash once again another undodgeable invisible slash. The fight will once again be decided by who can land their attack first, and this time it's Okita Tsuji who pierces Susanoo multiple times, a direct shot, but there is more. Susanoo does not fall and has enough energy to go for his attack and defeat humanity's fighter. At least that's what we thought. His body had no more energy left. Upon going for the attack one more time, everything shattered. That was the end of Susanoo. Okita Tsuji is the winner of Ragnarok's round 10. And then after Okita Tsuji claims victory, we get this. Him making the ultimate sacrifice. His life energy has been fully depleted. His death is coming. We see all the Shinsengumi running to his rescue, but then the arrival of a primordial god featured in Susanoo's flashback, Izanagi himself. Remember this character for the future, who manages to save Okita Tsuji's life, while also making it clear that the demon from within is no more, and it being very likely the case that Okita Tsuji will never fight as a swordsman again. However, he manages to survive and fully conclude his battle against Susanoo for round 10 of Ragnarok. Following that, we have the god's reaction breaking down what happened at the end, Gull celebrating, where she's seemingly confronted by Brunhilde here, but this was Nostradamus in a hologram state somehow, who ends up knocking out Gull while Brunhilde is deciding who to choose next for Humanity's Fighter for round 11, considering these four: Nostradamus, Kentoki, Simo, and Rasputin, who could potentially fight one of these three: Odin, Anubis, and Loki, where she's stressing about who to choose as they are so close to the conclusion of the Ragnarok tournament and saving her beloved Siegfried, where we cut back to Nostradamus, who's seemingly taking Gull into Tartarus, with the guards actually allowing him to go through the gates with no trouble, with Nostradamus also wielding this item, allowing him to navigate throughout Tartarus. We see him being known by the other guards we have seen previously, with the likes of Buddha, Kentoki, and Beelzebub appearing on the walls in the form of posters with the caption, "No entry, no exceptions," meaning those in charge of Tartarus are aware of their mischief, you could say. But we have Nostradamus arrive at one of these cells saying, "Sorry I'm late," where he releases Gull to the one and only Siegfried, the dragon slaying hero, where we get a bunch of reveals about both of them. For example, Nostradamus was appointed as Siegfried's direct doctor by Odin himself for some reason, stuff that does result in Gull questioning whether or not he's a traitor. But Siegfried makes it clear, no matter what happens, Lord Odin cannot allow me to die, revealing his plan to revive the primordial gods, and that Siegfried himself will be the vessel of such, where we get the canon flashback about the primordial gods, and you could say the original Odin himself. For example, listen to this. Long before all the gods we know in Record of Ragnarok existed, there was 88 primordial gods that created the worlds, the heavens, etc. Everything we know about Record of Ragnarok today. And among those 88 primordial gods, there were those considered the supreme, pretty much the four strongest. Ymir, the primordial giant, the demon king Satan, the lord of chaos, and the creator god Odin, the four pillars that make up this group. Until one day, these pillars felt as though the incomplete gods, the lesser ones, were not more so worthy. As such, they wanted to take them out, the massacre of the gods. Out of the original 88 gods, 7 others joined the 4 pillars, making it a war between 11 primordial gods and the 77 remaining, and the battle was not close at all. We see Odin at the forefront with the other 3 pillars behind him, absolutely dominating the other primordials, highlighting that at this point he's probably much stronger than everyone else, forcing the remaining ones to seal Odin and the other pillars away as their only chance, succeeding in the process but losing almost everyone. We know Izanagi and perhaps some others like Gaia survived, but from what we can see in these panels, it was not close to 77, highlighting that the original version of Odin was an absolute monster without a doubt. But his origin story continues. As they were about to be sealed away, the 4 pillars unleashed their weapons, or the 4 treasures, into the world for someone to find in the future. Within these weapons was the original soul, memories, etc. of these primordials, until one day this nameless god came upon Odin's sword he sent out. As such, the supreme god Odin returned to existence, taking control of this unnamed god and later becoming the Odin we know in the series right now. So that's the original flashback we know, where currently he has found all the other treasures but doesn't have the means to undo the seal and bring them back. This is because two other things are required. The first is the water of life and the second is the primordial vessel. The water of life is revealed to be the life energy of all humans, something that will be gained if the gods win the Record of Ragnarok tournament. And the second one, the vessel, is this. A god who receives the ruins of the Yggdrasil contained within the four treasures of calamity and the water of life, which is the life energy of all humans, will become a vessel achieving these two. He will gain the power to break the seal, the Yggdrasil will be released again, humanity will be gone, and they will continue the plan of taking out the lesser gods, destruction of Valhalla, and pretty much everyone. But to be considered a vessel, you have to be compatible with all four of the divine ruins, something Odin could not find for a long time. This includes himself until he officially found it. That is Siegfried himself. He is the one for some unknown reason that is compatible, meaning once the gods win, Odin will use the trapped Siegfried to 100% complete his plan. That's where we have Brunhilde arriving, who right now is trying to save humanity, save the gods, and Siegfried himself. Absolutely wild. Therefore, with all of the canon lore and flashback stuff out of the way, let's go to the current Record of Ragnarok tournament and what's going on with Odin. Something that could very well end up being 2 anime episodes of content, but the interactions between Nostradamus, Gull, and Siegfried conclude with the dragon slaying hero saying to Gull, "Because you are the final piece," highlighting her future role potentially. But now it's time to talk about Record of Ragnarok round 11. Brunhilde pulls up on Loki and begs him to participate in the next match, something he accepts as he's actually in love with Brunhilde, but also reveals that he's decided to fight in round 11 before this conversation even occurred, and claims that no matter what, he's going to kill his opponent. Additionally, after that interaction, we get a scene of Anubis getting ready to fight as he was just done dirty by Susanoo, eagerly waiting for his turn, assuming that it's going to be him. But upon arriving to the meeting room, Zeus reveals that Loki, without confronting or telling anyone, has appointed himself as the round 11th fighter, meaning the Egyptian doggo has been done dirty once again. Therefore, the god's next fighter has been chosen, and as a response, Brunhilde decides to choose Simo as the one in all of human history that has the most chance of defeating Loki, the one and only, the White Death. Thus, the matchup for Record of Ragnarok round 11 is here. Simo meets his Valkyrie and the walkouts officially begin, with the scores being a draw going into this round. The arena chosen was the Forest of Finland, wanted by Loki as well, and begins with Simo laying down, taking his iron sight, while Loki begins his first demonstration of his abilities, the summoning of Hercules, Odin and Thor, which begins their attack, destroying various parts of the forest as they try to hunt down Loki, but seem to be unsuccessful, resulting in the Norse god to continue using his ability, now wielding 100 summons across the arena, and as a response, Simo unleashes his first shot, instantly taking out a large majority of the summons. This is with a single shot and leaves everyone watching beyond stunned. The White Death begins coughing up blood and counts 1 as he moves around the arena once again, proceeding to climb up a tree and load yet again another organ for his second shot, locating his godly opponent with no difficulty at all and unleashing it as Loki appears from the tree. The remaining summons try to block the second one, but all get pierced, forcing Loki to summon this divine shield, but yet again it fails to subdue the bullet. Loki has seemingly been hit directly in the head by Simo's sniper, resulting in a potential victory and the White Death to count to 2. Following that, we see the god's body fall back, blood splattered everywhere, as Simo watches the fallen god closely. However, the god begins to appear behind the sniper, seemingly from this rabbit, and while this is occurring, Simo is still watching the Loki he just shot down, providing Loki the opportunity to complete his plan. For example, the Loki Simo just shot down was a copy the original Loki made around the start of the fight during the same time that had the black mist going everywhere and resulted in the summons of the other gods, meaning it wasn't just 100 versions of Odin, Hercules and Thor summoned, it was a real copy of Loki, which connects to his overall abilities, which he's now using in conjunction with this battlefield chosen by Loki himself to enhance these abilities on screen right now. However, there's a big issue. Simo's 2 sniper shots so far have far exceeded Loki's calculations. He's now fearful of the White Death and spends a good chunk of his time thinking of a way to take out his opponent, where he comes up with the greatest trap of his entire life, setting the final clash into motion. Simo hears some steps behind him and quickly turns to find a Hercules summon charging him at full speed. He quickly loads aboard and lands a direct shot seemingly on the heart, but at the same time, Loki and Thor appear from the ground behind him once again, charging with their weapons out. However, we cut away and see the Hercules Simo just shot down. Loki is appearing from the remains of that body. This is his plan to completely defeat Simo. It was revealed that the real Loki was actually hiding within the Hercules that was just shot, and due to his frame being much smaller compared to Hercules, he was able to avoid a lethal shot, taking damage from the bullet, but nothing that's going to limit him in this battle. Simo should have no idea that Loki is still alive and the real one is behind him once again, giving him the perfect opportunity to finish the match in one blow. This is the final 7 seconds of the fight. He's watching throughout the entire arena and pretty much believes he's claimed the victory and defeated Brunhilde's warrior, but something is wrong. Simo loads another bullet, but his attention is not pointed towards the Thor and Loki behind him. He is still looking at the Hercules on the ground and sacrifices yet again another organ, preparing to shoot that Hercules, which features the real Loki, claiming, "I will never mistake the pain of taking a life," connecting to what we learned during his flashback during World War II, his salvation as a sniper. Forcing Loki to change up his plan once again, he teleports to a bird in the sky and unleashes his weapon to try and defeat Simo, who quickly turns before the Thor and other Loki can even get close to him, unleashing the final bullet of this match. Loki's weapon is inching closer to a direct shot on Simo. However, the sniper bullet is simply too fast, and as every other time in the fight, Simo once again wields 100% accuracy and lands a direct headshot on Loki, seemingly killing the god, who concludes his life by once again expressing his love towards Brunhilde, as we saw throughout his flashback. And while that occurs, Simo also manages to dodge Loki's weapon. Yes, he gets a cut on his head, however it is by no means lethal. Loki has been defeated and falls to the ground as everyone watching is beyond stunned. This includes Jack the Ripper, the Greek gods, Shiva, Thor, and of course Odin, with us then getting confirmation that Loki is defeated as we see his body shatter into nothingness. When you die in the Ragnarok tournament, you don't go to hell or anything like that, you pretty much no longer exist. Simo takes a knee as his kill count has increased by 1 once again, feeling immense pain as his heart is seemingly pierced, connecting back to his PTSD and how by any means he doesn't want or would never want to do this, but he simply had to for the sake of humanity. The White Death has indeed defeated Loki and claimed victory in Ragnarok round 11, putting humanity in the lead as we enter the future of the tournament. The match duration was 8 minutes and 43 seconds, the second shortest in the entire tournament so far, and also featured flashbacks for both of the fighters. Simmo's one just connected to his wartime, and I went over most of the key points. However, Loki's one is potentially the most important flashback in the entire Record Ragnarok story, so let's break it down right here, where we get it revealed that Loki was a different breed, having blood of the giants in his veins, but still managed to stand shoulder to shoulder with Thor and Odin in terms of strength, recognized as a dreadful and a god most have to avoid. We also see the majority of the Valkyries around this time having some fun together, where Brunhilde is chucking a watermelon that goes towards Loki who's walking by, who does this, something that results in continued goofy faces that has all the Valkyries fearful due to what Loki is known as. Apart from one, these goofy faces actually result in Brunhilde laughing out, crying due to how funny it was. In this instance, Loki actually fell in love with her and has changed forever. This results in him beginning his pranks, whether that be on Brunhilde or the other gods. He's now known as the Trickster of Valhalla, even stealing Thor's hammer and taking along Brunhilde for the ride while the Norse Berserker is crashing out. They have a fun time together where Loki is believing they are going to be a couple eventually, until one day he spots Brunhilde with another, the one and only Siegfried, which results in him crashing out and setting up a way to remove Siegfried from the picture, transforming into him and killing the dragon of Odin, Fafnir, what Buddha had brought up previously, setting Siegfried up where they are arriving to Odin's castle, assuming it's going to congratulate them on their recent wedding. However, it's for the sake of punishment due to the crime Siegfried has apparently committed. Loki is successful, but then something strange occurs. As Odin is raging out, he notices that Siegfried has a unique aura and the treasures from within his body begin reacting. That's right, this is where Odin learned that Siegfried is capable of being the vessel for the primordial gods. As such, he sentences him to eternal punishment in Tartarus by his orders as a supreme god, something that worked in Odin's favor and only occurred due to Loki's jealousy. Absolutely wild. Additionally, throughout Loki's flashback, where we see Brunhilde now depressed due to the situation, we have the start of Ragnarok re-shown, where we see this god right here, a character that appears in one of the Record Ragnarok's official and canon side manga, Apocalypse of the Gods, highlighting its interconnection, with this being a prequel tournament of gods vs gods. I highly recommend checking out. But this is the Loki flashback and all the moments that built up to his eventual defeat by the hands of Simmo in Record Ragnarok. With us getting the arrival of the White Death's doggo once again, bringing Simmo back to consciousness, as we get the reaction from all the gods watching, Ares crying, Apollo saying it was beautiful, Jack fully breaking down the conclusion of their battle, Thor raging out and even being sad due to the situation, alongside Brunhilde as well, but also making it clear that she won't apologize. We also cut back to Gol, Nostradamus and Siegfried to see their reaction and how humanity is only one win away from victory, where we have Odin crashing out unlike any time before, this time in front of Brunhilde as he approaches her, where this time, and for the first time ever, she stands up to the supreme god and the one who imprisoned her love, Siegfried. Bringing us to the start of Record Ragnarok round 12, something that is still ongoing, but these videos on screen right here break down everything that's going on in regards to that. Highly recommend checking those out, as we'll probably get the start of that round around the end of Ragnarok Season 4, with various other things that you do not want to miss out on. So check those videos out, subscribe for more. Laters boys.